Story 1. How difficult it is to manage basic tasks like shopping and doctor appointments when nothing is open while you are awake. Even worse are the constant apartment inspections that happen every few months, always in the middle of your sleep time. Landscaping workers always mowing right outside the bedroom while you are trying to sleep. Story 2. We do not have the day off. That is when we are sleeping. Many people think we have the whole day to do things, but we do not. Story 3. How hard it is to do anything when you have to interact with the 9-to-5 world. Banking, doctor appointments, and all the mundane tasks. It really sucks to have to do those things when you are normally trying to wind down for sleep. Story 4. Sleeping, mostly. I used to have people ask me when I slept, as if it was possible that I did not. The concept of sleeping during the day confused more people than I would have expected. Also, in the winter, depending on where you live, of course, it is possible to go about a month without seeing daylight. Story 5. It's perfectly fine for me to have an alcoholic beverage at 8 a.m. because I got off work at 6 a.m. 8 a.m. is more like 8 p.m. for me. I have worked nights for years. Everyone I know already knows this, so what is with the judgment? Story 6. 8 hours of sleep is 8 hours of sleep. Going to bed at 6 a.m. and waking up at 2 p.m. does not make me lazy. I am getting the same amount of sleep as you are. Not everyone struggles to understand this, but some people find it difficult. Story 7. Imagine a world where people feel entitled to wake you up at 2 a.m. People act like you are lazy when you sleep past 4 a.m. You get to work and all that is ever left of treats or special lunches is the cleanup. When you try to quickly visit the grocery store between work and bed, people judge you for buying alcohol, even if it is with a full cart of food. You hear things like, well, you cannot just sleep all night. Well, you are home during the night, aren't you? Why do you need daycare? You are home. That is a bit lazy or selfish to sleep that late, isn't it? Story 8. If you flip to days off to participate in society beyond work, you do not have a free day for the first shift because you go back to sleep early. You are not functional during the hours you are awake because you do not consume caffeine. The first day off after your stretch of shifts is also not a day off because you are sleeping after being awake all night. You lose at least one day that is neither truly off nor paid for every stretch of shifts. Story 9. How easy it is to lose track of what day it is. At night, you go home, sleep, and return to work on the same calendar day. It disrupts your week. Let me tell you. Story 10. We need 2 days off work if we have an event, for example, a wedding. To be fully present for a wedding on Saturday, I need to take off Friday night to avoid coming straight from work without any sleep for 24 hours. I also need to take off Saturday night to enjoy myself and not go straight back to work without rest. I have had to explain this concept to my manager on several occasions, including funerals and lengthy medical appointments. Story 11. It is not laid back or easier than the day shift. It involves meeting the same goals with a minimal crew and none of the administrative assistance the day shift receives. Story 12. Night people are a different breed. Everyone is a little more honest and weird at night. Anyone who eats dinner at 2 a.m. is not normal. Sometimes when I have to go out and do things in the daylight, I am shocked by how many people are everywhere. I am used to the dark and quiet. Story 13. I worked nights for 3.5 years. Here are my complaints about what day workers don't understand. 1. I'm drinking after my shift when I have the next day off, just like you. But that's at 6 or 7 in the morning, so please don't scowl at me. 2. I'm not sleeping the day away. I'm just sleeping. 3. Work is just as busy during our shift, maybe slightly less. Don't tell me they don't do anything or just stand around. 4. Don't yell at me for mowing the lawn at 7 or 8 p.m. on my day off. 5. Don't yell at me for mowing my lawn at 7 or 8 a.m. on my day off. 6. I hate doctor's appointments. 7. What happened to places being open 24 hours? 8. Maybe I'll get up early and go eat dinner. I'm so sick of breakfast. 9. You can order a Whopper at 5 a.m. 10. We talk absolute nonsense with our coworkers because we are literally losing our minds. Story 14. 1. We really miss 24/7 stores and restaurants. 2. Do not call me at 1 in the afternoon and expect me to be awake. 3. If you knock on my door at 9 in the morning, there is a good chance I will be in my pajamas without a bra on. You are welcome. The resting brow face that goes along with it is a total freebie. Story 15. Work and sleep are swapped, so our available times to do things are all pretty much the same. Well, for me anyway. I get off at 7:30 a.m. and go to sleep before 9 a.m. Story 16. I'm not day drinking. Your 9 a.m. is my 9 p.m. Stop looking at me like a degenerate for having a mule with my breakfast, which is dinner for me. Story 17. The day shift does not understand that we drink coffee not to wake up, but to stay awake on the way to work. Story 18. That 2 p.m. for you is basically 2 a.m. for us. Stop calling it sleeping in. It is literally my midnight. Story 19. I live alone and keep a pretty consistent nocturnal schedule, even on my days off or when I take time off. So it is a lot easier for me than for people who live with families or have to split their sleep schedule to accommodate family responsibilities. 1. I will almost always greet you with good morning at 6 a.m. when I have just gotten off work and am walking my dog. I am awake enough to remember it is morning for everyone else. At 2 p.m., when I have just woken up and am walking my dog, it is still morning for me. 2. No, I cannot drop you off at the airport at 7 a.m. If I am awake and outside in sunlight at 7 a.m., it will take me hours to fall back asleep. It is not like you staying up until midnight to bring a friend, then going home when it is dark and quiet, allowing you to fall right back asleep. 3. Along the same lines, do not wake me up just for a few minutes in the middle of the day. I can sleep through a lot. It is much harder to fall back asleep when all the activity of the day is going on. 4. I do not expect neighbors to adjust their schedule to mine, but if you know you are going to be doing construction or something loud during the day, it is nice if you give me a heads up. Frankly, with the number of people who now work from home, I think this should be considered common courtesy. 5. I actually prefer night schedules. I do not like the sun. I like that it is calmer. Although it is inconvenient to get up at noon on my days off to do things like doctor's appointments, it is still easier than trying to take time off a 9-to-5 job. Story 20. I rotate every 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, I wake up at 4 a.m. The next 2 weeks, I wake up at 4 p.m. I try to keep the same schedule, going to bed at the same times. Just swapping a.m. for p.m. keeping up with appointments is difficult. Do I need a morning or afternoon appointment? Oil changes are frustrating. I arrive at 7 a.m. and they finally finish at 11 a.m. That leaves only 5 hours of sleep before work. My family finally understood my preference. Just text. I'll call when I can. In my field, the night shift gets more done because the upper management is not present to add extra steps and micromanage. Story 21. Today is tomorrow, but today is also yesterday. I work today and yesterday, but tomorrow I have to come back to work today. Story 22. My favorite is when my family or friends try to plan things and say, "Oh, can't you just come hang out for a couple of hours and then go back home to nap before work?" It's starting to annoy me. No, Aunt Karen, I can't just nap 4 hours, hang out with you for 3, then go back home and nap another 2 to 3 hours before work. I need to sleep 7 to 9 hours straight without interruption to feel rested and not groggy. Story 23. My night shift job is unusual because the hours are essentially when it is dark outside, plus some time before and after the night depending on my tasks for that shift. Getting people to understand this is surprisingly difficult. I am also surprised at how many times I've been asked, "So do you have to work tonight?" At 10 p.m. while I have alcohol in my hand. My boss would definitely not let me operate millions of dollars of equipment while intoxicated. Story 24. The slow erosion of a normal life. First, you work towards stabilizing your sleep as best you can. This usually takes months. Then, as you slowly conform to a nocturnal life just enough that you stop having headaches from fatigue, or maybe you've gained 50 pounds because you have figured out you can eat to stay awake, you start to realize that you cannot remember the last normal weekend or friendly outing in the last 6 to 12 months at least. The world just is not on your same schedule and, as such, you miss the ability to experience most of it. You could stay up during the day on the weekend maybe, but then you disrupt your whole routine and have to settle back into it. It is miserable. Avoid at all costs. Story 25. If you want to go anywhere, it disrupts your entire schedule for the next day or two unless you want to stay up for a full 24 hours. The museums are closed during the hours I am awake. The botanical gardens are closed during the hours I am awake. Bars are closed during the hours I am awake. Friends who work the day shift want to go out drinking or partying, and I have to wake up early if I want to go. It is like waking up at 5 a.m. to go to a rave and get drunk. Story 26. I have worked Friday to Monday, 2 p.m. to 12 a.m., more like 2 a.m. half the time, for over 3 years now. It is still hard for people to understand that their Friday afternoon is my Monday morning. They wonder why I am sometimes not in a good mood. Story 27. When I sleep until 2 p.m., I am not being lazy. I am actually trying to sleep like a normal person. Waking up at 2 p.m. is like waking up at 4 a.m. Story 28. It is frustrating not to be able to find anything besides breakfast to eat at 7 a.m. I just got off work. I want pizza, tacos, a burger, or some wings. I have never understood why it is acceptable to eat eggs and bacon any time of day. But the only burger you can find before 11 a.m. comes out of a microwave at a gas station. Story 29. The closing of a lot of 24-hour stores after coronavirus disease 2019 really changed how I needed to do basic tasks like grocery shopping. Story 30. Time does not work the same. Today, I went to work yesterday and will get off work tomorrow, even though tomorrow is still today and yesterday is also today. This is for a 9-hour shift. I go to sleep today and wake up tomorrow, but tomorrow is still today, and part of today will be yesterday. Story 31. I have been on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for most of the last 13 years. That is not normal or acceptable. People should not expect this from their healthcare providers, but it is standard in some fields. Story 32. In my trade, the night shift usually does not have all the micromanaging, non-skilled control freaks. The extra pay differential is a bonus. Also, when you are not around the crowds in the early morning and evening traffic that drive poorly, you start really noticing how unaware people are in the daylight and how peaceful the darkness is. Story 33. That your entire schedule revolves around your sleep, your time with friends and family, how and when you can socialize, everything. Story 34. There is no moral high ground in being a day walker. Sleep is sleep. My 8 hours is no more or less important than their same 8 hours. You would be forgiven for thinking otherwise because it has taken years to train my typical friends and family to understand that my waking up at 11 a.m. is not a moral failing. Thank God for silent mode on phones these days. Story 35. About time you wake up. I hear it every single day from my family, as if I don't work more hours than everyone else in the household. It drives me absolutely nuts. Story 36. Broken sleep is worse than no sleep. I am tired of people waking me up to ask a quick question or aggressively texting and calling me at times they know I am sleeping. Story 37. How the entire world seems to schedule every important event at 10 o'clock in the morning, just to make sure you never sleep. Story 38. You still have to wind down and not immediately go to sleep. I had to tell many people, you get off at 5 p.m. Do you go straight home and get in bed asleep by 6? Story 39. You will never feel healthy or fully awake. It takes longer to recover from exertion, and there is a real possibility of a bad vitamin D deficiency. Add the constant chronic fear of health complications later down the line, and I genuinely think they should be outright banned and made illegal. Story 40. I had to deal with a person's car insurance. These companies will not email or text. They will call to wake you up even after you have told them you were asleep all day. Story 41. My family does not understand that I sleep in the morning. They get home during the afternoon, but at that time I am working. I have security restrictions that prevent me from having a phone during their most social hours, so I cannot respond to their texts. They think I am ignoring them because I do not respond. I have explained my situation to them for 9 years, but it does not register. Story 42. I work the third shift night audit. I receive phone calls from managers while I am in bed. We have meetings at 3 p.m., which is like 3 a.m. for me, and these are about things that could be in an email. Story 43. I am not taking a nap. I am actually trying to sleep after my shift. I work 12-hour overnight shifts from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and nothing irritates me more than someone waking me up for something unimportant and then apologizing for interrupting my rest. Story 44. The people, including your direct supervisors, are generally more empathetic, understanding, and flexible. Very rarely do you meet a night shift person who is not laid back. They are either really easy to get along with or keep to themselves. Story 45. On Friday, after a long week, it is 8 a.m., and I am having a glass of bourbon. It is totally not a bad thing. Story 46. I work swing shift, which is 50% days and 50% nights. During summer, it is impossible to sleep more than a few hours during the night shift. My house is poorly insulated, and my bedroom is on the west end with no shade from the sun. Usually, 1 p.m. is the latest I can sleep because of the heat. I also have to deal with my retired neighbor mowing his lawn every other day at 9 a.m., along with other house and road work happening in the neighborhood. Story 47. I cannot just go somewhere with my family during the day. I have to sleep at some point and for a while. In my case, my body has reacted to the change in sleep schedule by sleeping longer or multiple times during the day. Usually, I sleep for around 5 hours once I get home around 8 a.m., then around 8 p.m., I lie back down for 2 hours or so before I start getting ready for work at 10 a.m., so I can be there by 11 a.m. This means I cannot go on an all-day hike up a literal mountain, which would leave me no time to sleep before getting home and preparing for work. I also have long work weeks, so I get burned out and just want time to myself. Unfortunately, nobody respects that, and I keep getting knocks on my door to say something or to invite me to visit while I am trying to sleep. I really need to move out of my parents' house, but I cannot afford that right now. Story 48. Wow, wish I could sleep in until 4 p.m. Must be nice. I got home from work at 6 a.m. and still had to shower, cook, eat, put laundry in, care for pets, and exist for a moment outside of work. I did not sleep in. If I got close to 6 hours of sleep, I am beyond lucky. Story 49. You know how annoying it is that the only open restaurants at 6 a.m. only serve breakfast food? I do. Don't get me wrong. I like breakfast, but not after I have been working for 12 hours. Those of us who had been up all night were in no mood for coffee and donuts. We wanted strong drink. Hunter S. Thompson. Story 50. One thing that always bothered me about working nights was how much people judged you for eating dinner foods in the morning. Even some of my night shift coworkers were confused when I was eating rice or pasta after work instead of pancakes and cereal. I had my breakfast at 10 p.m. I just worked all night. I would like some real food to end my day, not another half-filling breakfast. Story 51. Food choices are difficult after work. Do you want bread, eggs, and sausage from this place, or sausage, bread, and eggs from a different place? I want pizza after a long shift. Maybe some wings. The best I can do for you is a mediocre breakfast sandwich. Story 52. I work the graveyard shift, 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 1 a.m. to 9 a.m., depending on the day of the week, for about 4 years. I am a night owl by nature, but working overnights was another level. I would sleep around 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., so I was able to balance my personal life fairly well, planning appointments and such for the mornings after work. Going out on Saturdays required more sleep schedule planning, and Sundays were mostly a no-go because I had to sleep. What I was not prepared for was the constant slight lack of complete alertness. It was like I was at 99% and just could not fully clear the brain fog. It did not matter how much daytime sleep I got. I was never fully present. It was only after I left that position and returned to sleeping at night that something clicked, and I felt fully present and truly awake. Story 53. A lot of people do not understand that the entire sleep schedule is shifted, and they are very judgmental about it. I do not understand why some people view day sleeping as a moral failure. Story 54. Only Saturday is your true day off. Your Friday night is there but doesn't feel like a weekend. Sunday is just not there. You have to sleep to be up around 10 a.m. to get ready for work if you work Monday through Friday with weekends off. Story 55. For some reason, the majority of people assume that I immediately go to bed the moment I get home. I do not. I go to bed around 1 or 2 p.m. and get up in time to be at work by 11 p.m. When I get off work at 9 a.m., I do the same things as people who work the 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. day shift. If I went to bed at 10 a.m., I would never get anything done. Once I am in my pajamas, I am not leaving the house again until work. Story 56. They think you can just get up early and do tasks. Asking me to get up 4 hours earlier is like asking you to get out of bed at 3 a.m. and start your entire day. Story 57. Big one. People might ask why someone would work the night shift. It is the supreme level of unfiltered conversation that happens on the night shift that makes it almost addictive, at least for me. People do not understand that. Story 58. Do not contact me between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. For me, it is like someone is calling in the middle of the night and wakes me up for absolutely no reason. Also, the amount of loud handiwork going on around my apartment building is ridiculous. I understand they also need to work. It just really sucks sometimes. Story 59. I am still a third shifter on my days off. Unless I have a whole week off, I do not mess up my schedule. So no, I cannot meet you at 12 o'clock for lunch with grandma just because it is my day off. I will be in bed at 12 o'clock because that is my schedule. My in-laws still have trouble with this even though I have not worked day shift the entire time I have known them. Story 60. Just because I am off today does not mean I am magically available during the daytime hours. I can stay up late, but I do not feel like ruining my sleep schedule for the week just to accommodate you. Story 61. My husband starts work at 4 p.m. and finishes at 2 a.m. Sometimes he can leave early. His commute means he usually isn't home until 4 a.m. at the latest. He wakes up between 10 and 11 a.m., does daytime activities he otherwise wouldn't be able to do with a day shift, such as going to the gym, running errands, meal prepping, and hobbies. We're on opposite schedules, but we actually get some quality time together on my days off, which we weren't getting before. His job has poor daytime shifts where he could work from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., but shifts can be as long as 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. He never knows until he's there. Night shift gives him routine because the rule is that no one works past 2 a.m. There are number 16-hour shifts. His mental health has dramatically improved. He is able to care for himself. Story 62. I live in Gotham, actually just outside the city limit. There are many bad people out there doing harmful things, and my job, or rather my choice, is to put an end to their wrongdoings and hope the police remove them from the streets. Sometimes I even need to expose corrupt police officers. I do not trust them except for a man named Jim. It is hard work, and I have to keep myself in peak physical and mental condition. I have also had to learn how to help my body recover and heal faster from the physical labor involved in what I do. I am self-educated but have honorary degrees from universities to which I have donated money through my foundation. Story 63. I had no idea what was happening in the world when I worked night shifts. All I did was work and sleep because my work hours were long. Story 64. I would rather eat my own arm than go back to working day shifts full-time. But having to figure out problems and situations on my own because every manager and coworker is asleep during my shift was something I was not prepared for. Especially since I am new to the night shift and this is my first job back in the hospitality business since 2022. Story 65. Breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. It is the only meal. Social life takes a bit of a hit too. My free time is from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. when everyone works. I could just go to sleep right after work and have the evenings open, but it is unpleasant doing that. Story 66. I worked overnight at a 24-hour grocery store as a teenager. I'm glad I am not doing it now, but it was a good experience and I'm glad I did it. In some ways, it is psychologically easier. You are not thinking about what you could be doing instead of being at work. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. There is nothing going on out there that you are missing. No picnics, no hiking. You would be awake but staring at a screen. This was before that was what everyone did all the time. The rest of your life is not great, but you do not mind the job. People are strange, and dangerous situations sometimes happen. Most of the late-night people are fine. A lot of older people start showing up around 3:30 for baked goods. But some people seem to think the rules do not apply during those hours. People will try to hit on cashiers. Others just hang out because there is nowhere else to go, which is sad. The unusual people are just as active during the day, but you have more support then. Night crews take a lot of pride in their work. It is harder to stay on the job. They are always understaffed and performance expectations are high. Unfortunately, stimulant abuse is common. One of the colleagues I worked with died of a heart attack in his 50s, probably due to cocaine. The difficult part is that you cannot just adjust on your days off. 2:30 in the afternoon will still feel like the middle of the night, and you will not want to do things during the day. I have a lot of respect for people who can do it for years. I am glad I did it, but it was definitely not something I would want to do long term. Story 67. I worked midnight shifts for several years. In my opinion, day shift employees do not understand the sleep schedules of night shift workers. This is demonstrated by scheduling required meetings in the middle of the day instead of early in the morning when night shift workers may still be awake or late. At night, they do not want to inconvenience themselves. They also believe that 5 8-hour days are suitable for night shift, not realizing that compressed schedules like 4 10-hour days are a lifeline for the midnight shift. When my old job moved to this schedule, it pushed me to find a different job. Story 68. Having a glass of wine at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning is perfectly acceptable after a busy Saturday night shift. You get a certain look when you mention that you don't see daylight in the winter months, that all happens while you are asleep, or that you only see darkness on your nights off in the summer months. That is if you work somewhere with no windows like I did. Story 69. 1. It's not a nap, it's my full sleep. 2. Would you like to meet up at 2 a.m. before you have to go to work? Oh no? Well, that is like asking me to meet up in the afternoon during a work period. That said, I would never go during the day. Honestly, it is the best. Story 70. We are asleep during the day, so stop bothering us. Unless you want me calling you at 3 a.m. for some nonsense, stop calling me at 2 p.m. and expecting me to be awake. Your daytime is my nighttime, and my nighttime is your daytime. It is the opposite. These people do not understand. Story 71. Having to wait during a certain time slot for a delivery or a worker to come is worse for us because it means we lose sleep. I waited all day for my dishwasher to be delivered and developed a headache. Also, try to sleep while the plumbers are cutting out a cast iron pipe in your house after you waited 4 hours for them to show up. I cannot sleep while strangers are in my house even though my husband was supervising them. Story 72. You cannot just alter your sleep schedule at the drop of a dime to do things when others want. They always want you to do things according to their daytime schedule, never yours. Story 73. Today was yesterday, and tomorrow is today. It is hard to keep track of the date. You have to clarify if it is Monday morning or Monday night because the sun is no help. Story 74. The biggest downside is that it is harder to get things done at night when collaboration is needed at work. In healthcare, there is a skeleton crew overnight, and some tasks are not prioritized at 3 a.m. like they are at 9 a.m. Story 75. The havoc that waking at the wrong hours wreaks on your body is significant. You are not just tired, you are extremely tired. It is not like having a baby. You are constantly, without a break, exhausted to a degree that cannot be described. Story 76. Worked nights for almost 10 years. No, I do not want to join the team building event at noon. I do not care if I get paid overtime. That's midnight for me and it is not fun. No, I cannot meet for dinner at 5 p.m. when I go to bed at noon. It is hard enough to fall asleep during the day as it is, and trying to adjust my sleep schedule even the tiniest bit was often very difficult. Napping was incredibly dangerous. Most of the time, a nap became sleep and disrupted my sleep schedule for the next few days. Story 77. Planning group trips is difficult for us night owls. Expect us to be sleep deprived and probably irritable because you want us waking up when we normally go to sleep. Story 78. Night shift fatigue is very different from day shift fatigue. I worked night shifts for 7.5 years over 10 years ago, and I still remember what it was like when my brain was consumed with the question, When can I sleep next? I believe then, and I believe now, that night shift workers should receive a few extra paid time off days per year compared to day shift workers because of the harm that lack of sleep causes to the body. Story 79. I have worked 12-hour night shifts since 2013. 1. I already feel guilty sending my kids to daycare just to sleep, but not getting enough sleep long-term leads to many health problems, both acute and chronic. 2. On my day off, I worked 7 to 9 hours before coming home to sleep. 3. We spend our days off doing all the appointments, shopping, and errands we couldn't do while working. 4. I see my kids a lot more working night shifts. I am just sacrificing my sleep to do so. 5. Most employers do not care about the night shift. Scheduling mandatory meetings, in-services, and education during the day means I would need to stay 3 to 4 hours past my shift or come in 3 to 4 hours early. No thanks. 6. Night shift is often disregarded when it comes to employee celebrations and similar events. All that considered, I still love the vibe of night shift and how night shifters work better together. I am a nurse, and night shift is always closer because we rely on each other much more. Story 80. Getting judged for sleeping late is because this is when I have time to sleep. Also, how much noise impacts sleep? Construction, music, kids screaming, no one cares during the day. Understandably so, but still. Story 81. Social events. Everyone wants to have lunch or get together around noon. It is like me asking you to go out to eat at 3 a.m. Story 82. You don't sleep well during the day. Humans are meant to see sunlight. Working nights, especially during winter, is very hard on your mental health. You wake up when it's dark and go to bed when it's daylight. You also don't get quality sleep if you barely see sunlight. I did that for years and was deeply depressed, and no one understood. Everyone will tell you that you look terrible because you have bags under your eyes and you're pale. They tell you to get more sleep while simultaneously saying you sleep too much. People kept telling me how nice it is that I can make daytime appointments. No one understands that daytime is sleeping time, and they'll say you're just not making time for it, but would be upset if you called them at 2 a.m. Waking up and having to eat dinner with the family, but all you want is a coffee and maybe a bagel. Apparently, that's too unusual for the family, so you get pressured to eat a full spaghetti dinner at essentially your 7 a.m. Basically, you have no appetite until you come home, but you're so tired you just want to go to bed. I lost 50 pounds in 4 months because I couldn't handle the eating schedule of the midnight shift. Weekends are difficult because it's important to stay on schedule, but no one wants to hang out with you at 3 a.m. on Saturday night. You either miss a full night of sleep for a social life every weekend or stay on schedule and rarely see anyone. There is constant noise and interruptions during the day. Someone is always snow blowing or mowing their lawn, knocking on the door, dogs barking, traffic noise, or people living above you making noise you can hear with every footstep. The good thing about the midnight shift is that supervisors never come in, and the craziest and most fun people work the midnight shift, so there's always something funny happening. You meet fellow night owls on the midnight shift, and it's always a blast. The traffic is always light going to work in the evening. Story 83. We find ourselves with too much time to think and reflect on our lives. We zone out, replaying moments from the past and wondering what went wrong. It is the cold and the silence that carry you through those thoughts. Story 84. We are not home all day. Just as 2 a.m. is the middle of the night for many people on a normal schedule, 2 p.m. is the middle of the night for us. Story 85. Worked in a technical support call center a few years ago in U.S. Mountain Standard Time serving Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and other locations. There was about a 12 to 14-hour time difference, give or take. Work hours were from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. with shifting schedules because daylight savings time is observed differently throughout the year. Having a couple of after-work drinks and then sending the kids off to school before going to bed was a little jarring but manageable. Answering to the landlord at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday was difficult. It took every call center de-escalation skill I had to convince a 50-year-old contractor that I would mow the lawn that weekend and that I was getting a friend with a truck to haul the excess debris away. But I worked nights. My Saturday was still me sleeping until 2 p.m. before I roused myself to do yard work or work on the car. I thought several times about buying a floodlight and mowing the lawn at 4 a.m. Story 86. It feels really cool to be going home to a comfortable bed when everyone else is dragging themselves to work. I used to love walking home in the early morning. Story 87. The worst shift I ever had was from midnight to 8 a.m. listening to the radio. Trying to get some sleep between 1 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. was brutal. Within 3 months, I was begging to quit. Story 88. How much sunshine matters in regard to mood. I started getting moody when I only had 1 hour of daylight per day. If I was lucky, I had more, but it took everything in me to stay up and usually made me cranky. Story 89. My mom cannot understand that I go to sleep at 5 a.m. and wake up at 1 p.m. for my 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift. She thinks I should go to sleep as soon as I get home and be up by 7 a.m. Story 90. I used to work permanent night shifts, and people would say, "Oh, you must have all day to yourself to go shopping, play with the children, attend appointments, etc." There was no mention of sleep, early lawn mowing, or comments like, "Oh, you look tired." Story 91. When I am finally off work and want to grab a drink to celebrate surviving another shift, literally everything is closed except gas stations. When I am trying to sleep at 2 p.m., the entire world decides it is the perfect time to mow lawns, deliver packages, and have construction crews jackhammer the street. Story 92. I drive for a living and work overnight. Anytime I have to drive during the daytime, it frustrates me how much traffic there is, even though that is the normal amount of traffic and I am just used to very few vehicles on the road. Story 93. I work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. full-time. I get up at 8:30 p.m. and regularly go to bed between noon and 2 p.m. I wish people would let me sleep. Story 94. People generally do not understand how much harder it is on every aspect of your life, how much it affects your health and your mood. I do 12-hour shifts 2 days and 2 nights, so I literally never get into a routine. It is hell on my body. I have gained a lot of weight, and I am always depressed and irritable. Your first day off is not a day off. You are recovering and feel terrible. Story 95. When you have to stay back after finishing the night shift to attend a meeting with people who work normal office hours. Heading to work on a Sunday evening when the rest of the world is watching Netflix and eating takeaway. Story 96. If you decide to go out to eat breakfast, it is no longer breakfast food. It is usually just the first meal you eat, and the same applies to dinner. Story 97. I miss working nights because of the quiet. I was able to avoid social events. You work nights? You must need to sleep. Yes, I do. Story 98. In college, I worked nights as a hotel auditor. I would go to the store at 7 a.m. and receive some rude comment when I put the 6-pack of beer on the counter. Story 99. When I am scheduled to work one day, it is actually 2. I work 6 hours one day and work from midnight to 6:30 the next day. One workday feels like 2 days wasted because during the time I am not working, I am sleeping. Also, in my opinion, the night shift is busier. In my position, I am running around, being pulled in 10 different directions because I am managing a whole hospital with 1 to maybe 2 other people. I just switch to days and I tell the other day staff that I am on island time now. They do not like it, but it is true. Story 100. I always had to explain to friends and family why I couldn't meet them for lunch at noon. I would tell them it was like waking them up at 2 a.m. to ask if they wanted to hang out. Story 101. We work into our weekend. I work 4 10-hour shifts and should get 3 days off on paper, but really it's more like 2.5 because I have to go to bed. That situation is frustrating. Story 102. To preface, I have chronic insomnia. This fact may color my perspective, but I will share nonetheless. I have worked full-time in both shifts. I worked from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the hospital for many years and also worked from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. at the same hospital for many years. Same exact position, same exact work. Actually, I did the overnight shifts first, so it is not a matter of aging or anything else. The full-time overnight shift is much harder on the brain and the body. We might work the same number of hours, but overnights are harder simply due to being awake all night every night. Nobody in your life seems to understand why you cannot participate in activities outside of work. Your sleep becomes such a priority because you have to get it during noisy daylight hours. Even your weekends are disrupted because you are basically nocturnal. There is no comparison. The overnight shift is harder on your overall life than a regular 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift. Daytime working people, do not criticize your overnight working friends or family for not showing up to your barbecues, not dog sitting for you, or not meeting up for lunch. They miss those things, but they are just exhausted. Story 103. I don't sleep at night like they do. I was working on buying a home years ago, and my shift was from 11:30 p.m. to 8 a.m. The realtor needed me to go in and sign the paperwork. I go straight to bed after work. I don't stay awake as if it's a normal 9 to 5 schedule. The realtor wanted me to go in around 10 a.m. There was absolutely no way I could stay awake for more than 2 hours after my shift. I asked if we could schedule it for later because I needed to sleep. He said, okay, how about 12 p.m.? I just agreed because they just don't get it. They don't understand that when they're sleeping, I'm working, and I still need to sleep at some point just like they do. Story 104. I work 7 days on, 7 days off, from 8:15 p.m. to 6:15 a.m. My biggest pet peeve is how I am expected to be quiet as a mouse when I get home around 7 a.m. until others wake up. Yet no one worries about noise when I am asleep. Story 105. Day shift leave a bomb site with no concern and it's totally okay. But if night shift leaves so much as one chair out of place, it is a trip to human resources. And that is nonsense. Story 106. I worked the second shift for a few years. I would get home around 12:30 a.m. and then eat a small dinner because my break was at 6 p.m. I would go to sleep around 3 a.m. and wake up around 10 o'clock or 11 a.m. My dad would accuse me of being lazy or sleeping in, saying, I got up for work at 3. He worked in construction and had early mornings. I said, Dad, I went to bed at 3 a.m. You went to bed at 8 p.m. I wouldn't call you lazy for going to bed in the middle of my workday. He paused and said, oh yeah, and never bugged me about it again. My social life was poor during that time as well. Story 107. People you never see and didn't even know worked there. More creepy, dark corners than you remember. Phone calls at night increase the tension. Sort of like the beginning of 28 Days Later. Story 108. How much you miss out on the small things. Spending time with friends, having dinner with family, watching popular television series. I could go on and on. Story 109. Day shift workers do not understand that when daytime workers are assigned to the night shift, their health will soon decline. It will also not be long before they are sitting on the sofa, trying to muster the courage to continue. Story 110. Many people assume we are sleeping. My grandpa asked if I sleep on the night shift once. I was like, no, I am working. Story 111. In another life, I worked until 7 a.m. I fell asleep at an intersection once. I had a second job plus full-time at university. After that, my mom would call me at 6:55 a.m. every morning, listen to me debrief incoming coworkers, walk several blocks to my car, and literally scream at me until I got in bed. She didn't stop when I got home because I parked on the street, and my legs would just stop working. I'd fall, sometimes more than twice, on the lawn before getting to the front door. Honestly, I would have been just fine sleeping in the grass or the car. Day shift people don't understand that night shift requires extra sleep. It's almost like permanent jet lag. You have to eat before sleeping, or you will sleep an extra 3 to 4 hours, right until the next shift. Story 112. I'm an operations manager for a weekend night shift. 1. I run the best numbers out of all shifts with no information technology, no human resources, and no administration. Maintenance is understaffed, and there is little senior leadership involvement. If I don't know the answer, I better know my resources to find it. 2. My shift leadership team is always short-staffed because it's hard to get people to stay. Yes, it's the same leadership salary as those working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday. So my team has 4 days off per week, but we have to manage with less help and more employees. It's exhausting sometimes. 3. I have to make hard choices and hope for the best. It has to be a big problem for me to call my boss at 2 a.m. for help. They answer the phone anytime I call, but I'd rather ask forgiveness than permission. 4. I sleep all day on Monday after I get home. I'm not lazy. I'm tired. 5. Yes, I can do an appointment Tuesday through Thursday, but it needs to be after 12 p.m. 6. Blackout curtains are game changers. 7. Yes, I will have an alcoholic beverage on Monday morning when I get home. 8. What are you doing up so early? Is a common response anytime I reply to a text before noon. 9. If I go into work on a day off to get something done, I get a mix of messages on the communication platform. Be advised, a nightwalker has been spotted on premises, or personal comments like, "Do you sleep?" or "Isn't it a little early for you to be here?" I've had to come in once a week recently, and it's a running joke that I don't actually live at home. I just live in the ceiling and pop down as needed. Story 113. As a night shift worker, I had a fundamental lack of respect for upper leadership whom I had never seen before or only saw for brief periods once a month or so. I had been there longer than most people, so when a senior manager or executive would approach me and act chatty or friendly, I would look them in the eye and ask who they were and if they were new. If I had met them before, it was long enough ago that I had forgotten them. I understand you are the senior operations manager for the entire building. I have never met you in person, and that is a failing on your part as a manager. Do not expect me to waste my very limited energy being polite about that. Story 114. I have done both. Night shift can be very creepy, especially working in group homes. There is nothing like quietly moving around someone's house doing chores. Story 115. Worked graveyard shifts for 2 years. I talked to people 15 years my senior in the same role. They all said the same thing: you never get used to it. Story 116. I was not on overnight shifts, but I worked 3 days of 12-hour shifts starting at 3 a.m. on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for almost 8 years. Family often said, "Oh, you can miss a few hours of sleep." My mother-in-law wanted yard work from me on a Tuesday after she had retired from doing 12-hour shifts herself. I liked going in early because I could get things done with no one watching over my shoulder. It was very quiet. However, everyone in my life always wanted my time on those 3 days, and I would never hear from them any other time during the week. Story 117. 1. I am not available. I have work. 2. I am not available. I have work. 3. No, I am not taking time off just to go to the bar. 4. I am not available. I have work. 5. I am not available. I have work. Story 118. That 2 p.m. for you is basically 2 a.m. for us, so we are cranky because you just woke us up in the middle of our night. Story 119. Unless you are friends with other night shift workers, it is hard to have a social life. You usually have to choose between a healthy sleep schedule and spending time with friends. Story 120. I get to spend my time reading and watching television. They say it must be so boring. Dude, I am being paid to watch Star Trek. Story 121. Getting off work at 7 a.m. and going to a bar that serves breakfast and beer. I kind of miss working the third shift. Story 122. I agree with everything everyone has mentioned, but my biggest pet peeve is when something goes wrong and you are not able to fix it completely before the end of the shift. You write a short note with the relevant information. When you come in for the next shift, the day shift has already written the story about what went wrong and what you should have done, even if that is not what happened. Everything that is out of the ordinary takes longer to deal with because there is no support. Story 123. Always asking me why I don't have time to do things during the day. Do you really think I am sleeping during night shifts? Story 124. I worked overnight shifts for a while doing security. It was actually a pretty relaxed job. The only downside was the pay. What was irritating about daytime people was that they couldn't understand how I slept during the day. I would have relatives lecture me about how it is not good to sleep all day, and basically imply I was being lazy, even though I told them I worked overnight. What was funny, though, is neighbors thought I was a full-blown alcoholic because when I wanted a beer or two after work, it was around 7 or 8 a.m. People would be getting in their cars to go to work, and they would see me on the porch drinking a cold one. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.